I've been using this toiletry bag for almost 5 years now. I've taken it on almost every trip that I've gone on. And honestly, it's still in amazing shape. There's no rips, no tears, and if I emptied it all out, it would probably look brand new. So why am I replacing it? Well, as I've gotten older, I've realized that I care a lot more about personal hygiene. I can't just rely on whatever soaps and lotions that hotels provide anymore. That has meant that I need a bigger Dopp kit or toiletry kit. So I did some research and I picked out 5 possible upgrades. And in this video, I'm going to put them to the test to figure out which one is going to work best for me, maybe for you too. Plus, I'll give you a look at what I actually pack inside of my toiletry bag, a sort of Dopp Kit Essentials guide. So the first contenders we have here are the Summit Toiletry Bags. This is my original small one for $47, and this is the larger version for $50. Wow, is that right? They're practically the same price, even though this one is quite a bit larger. We also have the Peak Design wash pouches. This is the small for $50 and the regular, or the large, for $60. Then we have the Travelon Wet Dry 1-quart bag for $20. This is the cheapest one. The Osprey Ultralight Rolling Pack for $38. And the Cotopaxi Nido Accessory Bag, also for $40. But before I start comparing these bags, let's talk about what it even is. What is a Dopp Kit? It's a small bag for storing toiletries or hygiene essentials. And why is it called a Dopp Kit? Well, I had to Google this, but apparently it's named after a leather craftsman named Charles Dopp, the founder of a company who made such grooming kits way back in the 1920s. So before I go into detail about each Dopp Kit that I have here, let's talk about what all is going inside of them. So we have liquids, such as my shampoo, conditioner, moisturizer, face cream, face wash, body lotion, toothpaste, soap, also my makeup. I am super minimal with makeup, by the way, if you can't already tell. Toothbrush, floss, powdered mouthwash, hairbrush, light up mirror, tweezers, nail clippers, hair bands, and really that's about it. It might not seem like much, but surprisingly, these items take up a lot more space than you'd expect, which is why I need a bigger toiletry bag. Now, there are a ton of different Dopp kits on the market. So to narrow down my search, here's what I'm looking for. I'm specifically looking for one that is super or somewhat minimalist and lightweight. Now, prior to this mini Summit kit, I was using this much bigger so-called personal organizer by LL Bean. It was actually a gift from my mom, and honestly, it is still a really great pick if you don't mind the size. I mean, this also has traveled around with me quite a bit, and as you can tell, it is in a really good condition other than being a little dirty. But this is the small version. It's got a 3-liter capacity, and it weighs about 11 ounces when it's empty. And it's also just $30. So if you like the layout and you want a different size, there are 3 other sizes you can choose from, including an extra large family size. But I've always loved the layouts of this bag, and the whole thing unzips, revealing a hook so you can hang it. Again, this is not a bad toiletry kit. I just found it to be a little bit too bulky and heavy, especially compared to the little kit that I replaced it with. So this is the Summit Hanging Toiletry Bag, the small version. It weighs a fraction of the LL Bean kit at 2.8 ounces compared to 11. And that's because this bag is a lot smaller. And it's also made of a much thinner, lighter material that is still water resistant. The design is very simple. There's just one zippered pocket on the exterior, but when you unzip it, it unfolds pretty similarly to the LL Bean kit. And it also has a hook that pops out, so it's meant to be hung. Like I said earlier, this honestly is a great kit, although it is quite expensive at $47. There is also the slightly larger version of it for $60. And when I hold it in my hand, it's not just slightly larger, it feels quite a bit larger. So I did briefly consider getting this bigger kit instead, but I also wanted to explore other options, such as the Peak Design wash pouch. Now, I've used a lot of Peak Design products in the past, and while not every one has been perfect for me, I was quite impressed with the Peak Design packing cubes, which I reviewed and compared in another video. So I wanted to see how their Dopp kit was. Now, like I've come to expect from Peak Design products, this pouch is very well structured. The material is solid and it feels very sturdy in the hands. At 6.2 ounces, it's much heavier than the Sea Summit, but it's not as hefty as the LL Bean, and it's still got a 1 liter capacity. By the way, this is the smaller kit. There is the bigger version, which weighs 8.7 ounces with a 2.5 liter capacity. And out of curiosity, I ended up getting that kit to try out as well. Now, both of these kits have a hook on the outside to hang, but when doing so, the kit tends to sit at an angle, so it doesn't hang straight like the Sea Summit and the LL Bean bags do. And that's largely due to the design. Unlike those other kits, this one doesn't fold. It's one big zippered pocket with little sections in it. Now, some folks might prefer this layout, but I've gotten so used to having a kit that unfolds that I honestly am not a big fan of how this one just doesn't. But it's a personal preference. Other than the layout, this feels like a really solid kit, albeit it's quite pricey at $50 for the small and $60 for the regular size. And I really do like their color choices though. So in an attempt to go back to the unfolding hanging style bag, I picked up the Travelon Wet Dry 1-quart bag. This one intrigued me because not only was it far cheaper than the others at $25, but it also has a clear section for liquids. And it also comes with TSA approved liquid containers. So this is looking really optimal for use as a carry-on going through TSA screening. I also love that when this bag is hung from its very large hook, it's very easy to see all of your items, because that's something that I really struggled with my Sea Summit bag. I often have to empty it out to find my smaller items. This bag is also pretty lightweight when it's empty at 8.8 ounces. But it could potentially be a little too small, because if you max out the little liquid compartment, the top dry compartment really isn't all that big. There's also very little organization inside of this bag. So next, I decided to try this rolling organizer by Osprey. Now, I love Osprey backpacks, so I really had high hopes for this so-called ultralight roll packing organizer. And indeed, when I first unboxed it, it was super light at just 3.2 ounces. When I unrolled it, it reminded me of my beloved Sea Summit bag with multiple zippered pockets on the flap, as well as an unbreakable mirror, and one large zippered pocket on the bottom. Honestly, I thought that this bag was going to be V1, but as I started to pack my things inside of it, this compact little toiletry kit ballooned into this ultra large kit that I actually had trouble zipping shut. So if you're a really light packer, or you're really careful with how you pack your items and you don't overstuff this, then perhaps this could be a good option for you. But it really didn't work out so well for me. So even though I said I prefer an unfolding hanging bag, I decided to try the other style again, this time in the form of the Cotopaxi Nido. Now, first off, I will say that their wild colors actually were quite appealing, especially in contrast to the Travelon, which is only available in black or dark purple. I like my toiletry bag to be a brighter color because so many of my other accessory bags default to a darker color. Anyway, this Cotopaxi Nido bag is one size. And besides the color, the first thing I noticed was how when it's completely empty, it can be rolled up. This can be super handy if you really need to stash it and you don't have anything inside, but it also indicates that it's lightweight, which it is at 6.5 ounces. Still, this bag has by far the most storage at 4 liters, and it's spread out in 3 zippered sections. Each section is pretty general, so there's not much in the way of interior organization. Peak Design was definitely the best for that. But that also means that this doesn't have to be used as a Dopp kit only. In fact, you could use part of it for toiletries and the other part for small electronics or your cables. There are only a couple of things I didn't like about this kit. First is the handle. Even though it has one big handle on the side, it doesn't have one on the longer side. So you can't carry it with the zippers facing up, which means that your things tend to get disheveled. You know, they will fall out if they are organized inside. There also isn't a hanging hook, which was nearly a deal breaker for me because I really love hanging my Dopp kits. But I did find a way to add one. You know, these zippers actually have loops on them, so you can add like a carabiner or like a hero clip to the zippers and hang it this way, and that way it's also more upright. Now, I also picked up a clear Osprey zippered liquids pouch because it fits perfectly inside of the main compartment of this bag. and I filled that pouch with my liquids in these clear 1-ounce tubes. I know that TSA permits up to 3 ounces of liquids, but honestly, I never come close to using that full amount, even on my longest trips. So to save space, I prefer these 1-ounce containers. Now, trying to figure out which of these was going to be the best for me was honestly a very difficult decision, because there are features that I liked about each one, but there really wasn't one that ticked all the boxes for me. So I knew I was going to have to compromise. I initially thought the Cotopaxi was going to be it, but then I tried to travel with it for a bit, and ultimately I didn't like how roomy it was. I actually ended up preferring the Peak Design wash kit because I feel like it compresses really well when it's zippered shut. And even though I tried hard to make the small wash kit work, I ultimately ended up getting the bigger one. This wasn't quite enough space for me. Actually, you know what? I can fit all of my dry essentials into the small wash kit, but in the larger one, I can also fit my liquids. And I like to have all of my toiletries in one bag rather than separated. So that's how I ended up with the larger Peak design. But you guys let me know what you think in the comments down below. Which of these Dopp kits do you think is best? Which one would you choose for yourself? Which one do you currently use? I would love to know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.